Ladies and gentlemen, we're covering the finals in the wrong order. As you may be aware, I've already uploaded the LCS finals, and well, today I'm going to be starting with the LEC one. We'll be getting through pretty much all of this and uploading it the day after the LCS one, so tomorrow. But yeah, this is going to be fairly interesting to say the least, as this is a very good series to cover, and wow, I wasn't expecting a blowout. I'm already giving my review right now, but yeah, we've got a lot to talk about in this series, and we're going to get straight into game one right now. So welcome to probably the quickest draft in the LEC history between these two teams. This is game one, ladies and gentlemen, so we're going to be slowing it down quite a lot, obviously, to cover all the champions on a broad and very intricate bit of knowledge on all of them that's going to play vital into this series. So we'll start with the ban phase here. From Fnatic we see Kalista, Syndra and Yuumi all hitting the bench, whereas G2 ban out the Pantheon, the Senna and the Thresh. Now, the Kalista ban is a phenomenal pick for G2 that's been pretty much one of their carries in recent games. Wunder can play it in the top lane, and we've seen Caps actually run it once or twice in that bot side map. Obviously, every time Wunder's played the champion, it's won, I do believe, and it's very strong. Syndra is again a pick that's phenomenally good for G2, with them having two mid laners technically in Caps and Perks, who can flex that champion between either lane with ease. Obviously very strong in terms of the fact that she's high AP burst. You have a lot of options with them orbs, you can place them wherever, you can use them to stun people, and you've got a massive execute with them as well. Very strong. And the last ban is a champion that was used to great success in the Madline series that G2 won, as the Yuumi obviously was used effectively for Mickey, who played quite a lot of these sorts of mage picks that we'll see quite heavily in this series, to say the least. As for G2 side, we see the Pantheon removed. A great roaming champion, obviously kind of allows G2 to play this game where they can create fights on a map and it's very hard for Fnatic to react to. And also we see the Senna being banned. Again, it's a Fnatic main pick that they rocked in their first series of playoffs. It absolutely dominated that game. It was very hard for anyone to contest it because the champion was so good. It literally meant that you have to ban it because there's no way to realistically play against it other than, say, taking it out of the equation with slowing down its early game. As for the last ban from G2, it's a Thresh ban, and I like this ban heavily because, in essence, why it's good is because Hylissang is very good at play-making champions. And what we see in this series is well, I don't know what to call it, but we don't see playmakers out of Hylissang this series, which is a thing that we'll get to later. But we do see the Thresh removed from the game, and we can move on to our first round of picks, and I'll give you a spoiler alert right now. The actual gameplay for the first 30 seconds of the game has already started on my actual feed right now, and we've only just finished the ban phase, so let's get into this. So, first pick phase arrives, and we see Fnatic immediately preference the Aphelios here. Obviously, it's probably the strongest available ADC in this moment, and is very strong. Obviously, you do need to rely on positioning quite heavily as this champion, as you do need to be ready to use what ultimate you need. Obviously, your ultimate changes on what gun you've got, and the gun usage is very different for different environments. And the way you want to use it is blue for mass damage, white for long range sniping, and for doing attack speed shots, red for a massive amount of lifesteal, purple for a stun onto multiple targets, and I forget which gun I'm missing, the green one for a massive snipe shot. There we go, for marking a lot of targets. As a response from G2, we see the Azir and Jarvan picked up for them. Two great champions. You obviously have a combo there in terms of the fact that you use your Cataclysm as Jarvan, you flag and drag in, Cataclysm on top, and if the champion has no movement like an Aphelios, they're in a pit with a Jarvan at close range who has a combination with the Azir who can just put up his sand soldiers inside that pit and just fly in there, bringing a lot of attack damage, and when he gets 3 of them up, they're going to be shredding through champions that are trapped and cannot run away from them. As a response from Fnatic, well, they lock in a champion that can help the Aphelios and help him quite well. It's not an engage tool for Hylissang, it's a safety tool for Reckless. It's going to be the Tahm Kench. A great champion in terms of the fact that he has his own Devour to save teammates, he eats them up, he can then spit them out as soon as he wants to. Obviously, he gets slowed down considerably with a full belly, and he also has a built-in stun to his kit, and he can also eat enemies if he wants to. He also has that great thing called Greyskin, which in effect makes him so that once he's taken a lot of damage, you can press the button to gain a massive shield, or after a while you can gain back a little bit of health. Now, to finish out the thing here, we see Veigar for Fnatic picked up. A great champion in terms of the fact that it's a very strong AP champion. It's kind of a massive counter to the Azir in terms of the fact that the cage does have a sort of mirroring to the spawn radius of the Azir sand soldiers. So, in fact, if you get put in the cage as an Azir, you kind of can't just place a sand soldier out of it, and it's kind of hard for you to escape from it. That being said, Veigar also is a great champion for catching and bursting out targets. Has a great scaling in terms of AP, built into his own passive. And yeah, it's very, very nice for them to actually use this champion. The last champ in this phase picked up is going to be for G2, and it's kind of a smart play here. Instead of locking in their support, knowing that they've got counterpick after the ban phase, and realistically Fnatic can only ban a Nautilus and a Blitzcrank for support bans, and G2 haven't even locked in their bot laner, so I don't think they'd focus too heavily onto the bot side of the maps in terms of bans. So it's pretty smart for them to lock in their top laner here, and what we see is the Ornn pickup, probably the strongest top laner in the map that's available, bar a set, but Ornn's great in terms of the fact that he adds to this combo that G2 are already building. If you use the Ornn Horn to knock up people, you can also then have the Cataclysm jump on top of them and absolutely decimate them in a fight, because Azir can just go in and kill. He's a great champion in close quarters in terms of the fact that he's built to flamethrower you, he's built to knock up off walls. In a sense, he's a very bulky boy that can do a lot of fighting, in essence. And that's the end of the first pick phase. Let's jump into our bans for this second round of the pick draft. We hone ourselves now into the second ban phase, starting with G2 removing the Gragas, a great ban for them, already realising that Fnatic realistically would love to have this champion. It's a great disruption tool, and it does get followed up in the second ban with disruption. Don't get me wrong, I love talking about disruptive champions. Probably one of my favourite things to discuss when doing these videos. But Gragas, great champion, has a great clear, obviously good in team fights, obviously great in setting up fights. It helps technically in Aphelios. Obviously with the ultimate of his, it can bring him closer to an Aphelios' red gun and also white gun turret. It's very, very strong. He can do a lot of work and is very, very good for that. The response from Fnatic banning is the Ezreal, due to the fact that Caps wants to play a safe ADC. He wants to play a champion that can obviously work well in that bot lane. He wants to get a good game, because Caps has been the, well, not the best ADC in the league. That has definitely gone to either Kazi or Reckless this year. And obviously, giving Cap something safe to go into a Reckless Hylissang bot lane that's already been locked in is sort of the good option. Yes, he could technically play MF because that's still available, but Caps isn't realistically known for playing MF. He's more known for these better champions and mid laners as well. The response is the Set ban from G2. As I said, I love talking about disruptive champions, and Set is probably one of the best disruptive champions. With that show-stopping ultimate, he's able to jump into your backline, bring them closer to him, and unleash a massive haymaker, knocking them all dead on the more grit he has, which you get from doing more damage to him. Obviously, he's a very, very strong champion, and can absolutely turn a fight just like that. He's also very, very good laning. He's kind of one of them lane monsters in that top side of the map, and going into an Ornn, it would be a fairly safe matchup for a Set, because Ornn realistically can't put that much kill pressure on him in the laning phase. Now, the response from Fnatic is the Blitz ban. We don't want Mickey playing engage heavy champion like a Blitz. I would have much rather have seen a second ban towards the Caps, like an MF, instead of a Blitz ban, because obviously there's still a Nautilus available, and if they wanted a hook champion they could easily go for that and have a tank as well. But yeah, it's a nice ban, I guess. I mean, it does put Mickey on a bit of a situation on what he does play, but I don't realistically like that ban too much from Fnatic. Welcome to the sweet part of the draft, the juicy bit, and we see G2 locking in a mage in the bot lane, something they're not realistically known for doing in the bot side map. Obviously you see these champions go towards the top with Wonder, but Lulu gets locked in for Mickey, and Lulu's a champion that we haven't seen in a long time, probably back in the Ardent Sensor meta of season 8 or 7, 1, 2, and Lulu, great little yordle in terms of the fact that she has her whimsy. She can obviously make it so that Tom Kench cannot eat up a teammate, also stop champions like a Silas on top of someone with that polymorph, and absolutely decimates opponents. And with the likes of an Ornn and a Jarvan in your front line, the champion obviously makes it so that fighting is very, very easy, because you just put your ult onto them, and in essence they become these big massive monsters that are very unkillable, and it's very hard to get through if you're Fnatic. In response though, we do see Lee Sin and Silas picked up here for Fnatic. Lee Sin, a great engaged champion, obviously with that sonic wave, jump onto people, you're able to kick him back into your team and kill them off with ease. He's a very big threat in terms of early game. Towards the late game he does slightly fall off, but not that much in terms of the fact that he's still relevant with that kick and ability to jump into the backline and threaten kills with ease. That being said, a partner alongside him would be the Silas in the top lane. A pick that you don't realistically see too much. Obviously has got a massive amount of harass with his passive and the W and E combo, where you can lock up a person for about 4 seconds roughly, and you can steal the opposition's ults. That makes this even better. When you look at the ults on the G2 side, stealing Lulu ult, great. That means that you can buff up someone in your team, keep them alive a bit longer, make a very, very big engage. You've also got a zero. You just make it so you can disengage a fight easier than what you can. You can take Ornn, engage. You've got a lot of tools there on the G2 side that Fnatic would love to take it, and they can now with that Silas pick, which overall is very, very strong. And the last pick of the game that we see, it's something I don't remember the last time I've seen at all in pro play, especially in the LCS and the LEC. It's the Kog'Maw. It's a hyperscaling champion. Back when hyperscaling was the big thing, it was a big craze a few seasons ago, like season 8. We saw a lot of Kog'Maw, we saw a lot of Azir, we saw a lot of these hyperscaling champions, especially Corki as well, just all being picked up. It was back when Corki was reworked. And this champion has a lot of range, and it's very hard to pin down if you can get on him. And he has a great amount of attack speed, he's got a long range, he can just run you down, and it's very easy to execute on this champion if you're left alone for the entirety of the game. And I'm going to give a little rundown on both team comps here, and I put this on my Twitter, and you look at the G2 side. We'll start with G2. Jarvan, Ornn, and Lulu realistically love close range engagement, and partnered with an Azir, if you get caught in a choke point, these champions are going to thrive. They're going to absolutely decimate your team and make it so that you're going to be killed off and rushed down by a Kog'Maw, because he's just able to fire in to a choke point without having to go anywhere near the choke point. Whereas Fnatic have a similar sort of effect. If you get caught in a choke point, you've got an Infernal from the Aphelios coming down, you've got a Lee Sin getting in top of you, you've got a Silas jumping on top of you, you've then got the ultimate from one of the G2 side, so maybe a Jarvan on top of a Jarvan, making it a very, very big difference in a fight. And overall, G2 realistically, if they catch you out anywhere on the map in a very short range, you're going to be screwed and killed off. And this draft is very easy to execute for G2 in comparison to Fnatic, and I honestly feel this game is G2 favoured from the get-go. Anyway, enough of me rambling on about the team comp, let's jump into game numero uno. So let's kick off game 1 with our first blood happening 6 minutes in, and what happens is Fnatic get a level advantage in that top side of the map, and Silas is pushing freely and he starts engaging with Lee Sin obviously roaming up to try and engage, and what ends up happening is it ends up a 2v2 and Ornn gets chunked out pretty low by the Fnatic team. Now Fnatic here are thinking, we're going to tower dive the Ornn in order to try and win. And what we see here is the Ornn picking up his catalyst with his passive and then having enough health in order to survive the dive. And with this engage failing for Fnatic, it gave over an easy first blood to the Jarvan in the jungle, meaning he's going to have a lot more roam priority, get an even bigger advantage that the Lee Sin's going to fall behind on, and with the failed dive and a level advantage on the Fnatic side, it's kind of bad for them as they're unable to get anything with that advantage. So we skip a bit further ahead where Fnatic have equalised gold with a Drake and a kill, and Ornn's already roamed down bot for this play. He immediately casts the Ornn Horn and Tahm Kench gets knocked up by it. However, a TP equalises the members as well as 2 roam downs from Fnatic, making it a 5v3 in favour of Fnatic here, as the members of G2 come down to help their team. What we end up seeing is Tahm Kench going way too deep and Ornn knocking up the Aphelios in the retreat by Fnatic because they've gone a bit too hard to try and secure a kill, and they failed to do so. And it's a 2-0 win here for G2 if they continued the way they did. However, what we end up seeing is Caps and Mickey thinking, okay, the bot lane of Fnatic are dead, they can walk up, and they get punished. Silas hangs around. With Lee Sin collapsing in, the low health Lulu just gets absolutely demolished by the Silas E and WQ combo. Then it's just an easy chase down for a Lee Sin on a no mana Kog'Maw, and it's a double kill back over to Fnatic. That being said, the advantage from Fnatic, it doesn't end here. They managed to pick up the Herald as well. So, in the essence of this play, it's a 2-for-2 trade, as well as the Herald going back over to Fnatic. And one thing I like about how Fnatic are playing this game, they were all bot side. They've then immediately roamed all the way up to Herald, taking it because G2 won't make that play. They'll rather reset and get an advantage that way. And Fnatic know this and punish it and get more gold onto their backs. From here, for the next 5 minutes or so, we see Fnatic with a big gold lead that gets built up until the point of 1840, where we see a massive fight that decides the actual outcome of this game. So what we end up seeing is Fnatic trying to punish the two overstepping carries for G2 in the Cog and the Azir in mid lane, and they managed to land the root, they managed to land the Silas Cataclysm that he stole from Jarvan, but what ends up costing them is Hylissang, again, going way too deep. He flashes over the wall to try and secure a kill onto one of these two carries when you're playing the Saviour support, and that kind of costs them in this team fight. It gives over a nice amount of gold to G2 with Baron spawning in 50 seconds. It gives G2 a 4-2 trade, it gives them the turret mid, it gives them a very easy mounted Drake off this play that they can technically transition over to Baron if need be and win the game from that. And that flash forward costs Fnatic a lot because you have no safety in the team fight. And we'll watch this again. He uses his warp up here, Tom Kentrell, and Affiliate Ult comes down, locks him in place, and Jarvan actually is the one to initiate the Cataclysm onto both the Silas and the Tom Kench, and then he immediately stopwatches so Tom Kench doesn't get to do anything because he has no tool to escape it because he's already flashed to get into the play for no reason, and then it's just an easy rundown with the Azir soldiers to kill off a couple, and then the Jarvan to kill off the further team members with the flag and drag. In essence, if Hylissang didn't use his flash, that would have been an alright fight for Fnatic. They wouldn't have got any kills, but they would have had position in mid lane to push the wave up to the turret. And yet, they lose that because of Hylissang using its flash. Now, with a fed Kog'Maw and Azir, with a high amount of attack damage, high amount of attack speed, and a lot of penetrative damage, we see G2 setting up a Baron by clearing out all of Fnatic's vision with pretty much ease. We then see Ornn roaming mid to force away the Fnatic members and get the G2 mid wave pushing. Already top waves pushing for G2, and bot wave is, I do believe, G2 pushing as well. So G2 with the cover of Fog moves straight to Baron, 5-man strong, no Fnatic vision, are able to just take this Baron without that much contest from Fnatic. Yes, Tom Kench roams up, but it's already gone before he gets there. And what we end up seeing is G2 getting a pretty easy Baron and them just roaming away, TPing away back to base, clearing out the jungle, and it's easy for G2 from here to win the game because Fnatic just concede a free Baron. Now with Baron and on Soul Point, we just see G2 using this push to their advantage. We see them all hovering around bot, and a pretty poor Abyssal Voyage from Tom Kench absolutely gets punished by G2. They knock him up, they use the Ornn to knock him up, and then we just see the Arcane Assault from the Kog'Maw just unleashing a barrage of damage and killing him off, while Veigar is now trapped behind G2. The Aphelios is already dead because he came in with the TP, and what ends up happening is a couple of members of G2 reset and then TP all the way back to bot wave because they can do that, and guess what? This is the game-winning push for G2. Yeah, they are quite low health, 3 of them do have less than 50% health, but when you're trying to defend your base as a Tahm Kench, as a Lee Sin, you realistically can't do much against a full health Ornn, and Azir who can just absolutely decimate you and shred you to pieces with that Liandry's Torment, and that essentially is game 1 for G2 in an easy fashion. Welcome to Game 2, where we see Fnatic on the blue side again, and yeah, the bans stay pretty much the same. Kalista, Syndra and Yuumi removed from Fnatic, and G2 ban out Pantheon, Senna and Thresh again. Yeah, you see the main thing that's going to happen through the entirety of the series is there's not going to be that much change in terms of the bans. And yeah, it's pretty good these bans stay the same. Obviously they worked out quite well for G2, and I don't think Fnatic will change them up too much because obviously it was more of an execution issue rather than an actual champion issue. Now, our first pick in this round will be the Aphelios again for Fnatic, obviously prioritising a strong bot lane matchup for themselves. You kind of expected G2 to probably take the Kog'Maw in response, and instead we just get the Azir Jarvan combo again from G2, and it's looking like that salty run back is continuing. However, what we end up seeing is the Tahm Kench and the Ornn this time being locked in for Fnatic. Them picking up the champion that was on G2 side last time is a bit different. Obviously has a great engage tool and does add a bit more bulk to the Fnatic team that lacked it last game. Now, the response here from G2 is not to choose the Sylas, although they do hover it as sort of a meme pick. They instead go for the Zac, and this is the first change up in the draft in terms of champions. Zac's a great tanky boy in that top lane. He does have a lot of health. He's very, very good at obviously sustaining through fights. It's very easy for him to obviously heal up because he can just pick up his boblets, and he does technically need to be killed twice in order to kill him while his passive is up, and is a great fighter and will work very, very nicely with a Jarvan because he can just catapult himself into the Cataclysm and start bouncing around like a madman. Now what we see is the ban of Corki to start things off in the second ban phase, which is a great ban because it's obviously a big counter to Azir. Obviously you're just firing rockets into the crowd and it does a lot of damage, and obviously the way G2 have set up their team, Corki is one of them good champions to get away from a Jarvan and Zed engage, as well as just unleash a lot of power and rockets into a close quarters situation. Now the other ban that we see from Fnatic to start off this second ban phase is the Ezreal ban. So yet again they're throwing bans towards Caps, who obviously is going to be forced off of a comfortable pick for himself. Now this ban's followed up by an MF ban by Fnatic, so finally they remove another ADC, but it kind of is a bit annoying that they banned the MF because we've already seen him play Kog'Maw into an Aphelios, so clearly he's got a champion he's comfortable on against you and can do very, very well against you on. Now, the other ban in this phase is the Gragas for G2, obviously removing a champion that would make the very, very AD heavy Fnatic team a bit more potent with a good engage tool that goes along well with the Ornn and the Aphelios damage. So having this champion removed is very, very good for G2 as it means that they're able to play a bit more safely. It also means that it makes the engage tools from the Zac and the Jarvan a lot stronger without them being able to be disrupted in a way. Now, that's the ban phase done with. Let's move over to our last round of picks. So let's get into our last picks for this game, and we start things off with the Kog'Maw for G2. Yet again, Caps is bringing in this champion, and yeah, it played phenomenally well into the Aphelios last game, so I expect the same this game. It realistically shouldn't have got through the second ban phase, but hey ho, what do you know, it goes through, and what we see in response from Fnatic is a good champion. I'm surprised it actually didn't get banned here, but I guess it makes sense for G2 to ban them sort of champions that they did, but it's a Trundle, a big counter to the Zac, and technically the Jarvan, and it makes it very, very easy for him to engage because he can just put the subjugate down onto the Zac, so all the healing that Zac's wanting to do just gets straight destroyed and put into the Trundle. And the other pickup is a champion that I'm surprised actually got locked in here for Fnatic. I would much rather expect a Zoe or an Ori or a Victor, some sort of control mage in the mid wave to actually survive, but instead you've got a champion that's going to get absolutely decimated by a Jarvan and Zac if he's caught out in the Kassadin. You're kind of screwed until you're level 16 as Kassadin. You want to obviously get that level 3 ultimate that puts your ultimate on a 2-second cooldown, meaning you're just teleporting everywhere, doing a lot of damage. Plus with the way you build him, it's really easy to obviously build a lot of mana with the current changes to Ruins, where Mana Flow Ban gives you extra mana, and there's another one that gives you a lot of extra mana, so you build them and you basically have a big bar of mana, and you can do a lot of damage with them that champion. That being said, the last pickup here is yet again the Lulu. It's not surprising at all because it was already in the last game, so why not bring it into this game? But that's the draft. Let's see how things turn out with the slight changes to the Fnatic and G2 draft. So this play starts off pretty much the same as last game. G2 trying to repeat the play that got them Baron the first time in game number 1. And from the WOD that's just been highlighted, Fnatic have full knowledge of this happening and they try to contest it. However, G2 burn it down way too quick, and Ornn actually messes up his ult, as you can watch right now. Now he whiffs it, and Trundle's now in front of a firing line from G2 and is immediately bursted out by the Azir statues, and then because Jarvan flags him and kills him, he's able to drag straight through and land his Cataclysm onto the Tahm Kench and the Aphelios, allowing an easy double kill onto them, while Ornn's just immediately killed off, and only one member from Fnatic is able to escape the onslaught from G2, giving them pretty clear 4-0 in this team fight, and a couple of turrets to boot, which overall will lead to G2 picking up the second game this series and putting them on match point. We are at our third game, ladies and gentlemen, and the bans come in thick and fast. Kalista hits the ban bench, Syndra hits the ban bench, and Yuumi hits the ban bench again for Fnatic. They do not want to change them bans up. As for G2, we see the Pantheon ban, the Thresh ban, and the Senna ban all returning to the ban bench again. No changes for bans in this game and this series as a whole, so we haven't really had to talk that much. As for our first round of picks, though, we see Azir for Fnatic this time being picked up. It is now on their side of the matchup. It's a big change up because obviously they haven't had first pick for mid at all this series, and going through the champion that we've seen perks on all 2 games so far is kind of a big change. Now what we do see though is G2 making the change up here and immediately going rogue and very, very dangerous. Immediately they play cocky, they pick the Aphelios, the thing that Fnatic have played unsuccessfully for 2 games already, and they feel they can play it perfectly against Fnatic. They also pick up the Corki here, which is a direct counter pick to the Azir, something that's been very, very strong in the current game and the series as a whole. Fnatic decide they're going to lock in their bot laner as well, obviously not picking their support as well. They go for the MF. Now this is a change up from the Aphelios, as the bullet time hasn't been shown at all this series, and MF is a great champion for zoning away team fighting comps, making it hard for teams like G2 who are wanting to use a Jarvan combo. It makes it hard for them to execute well, so picking up the MF does give Fnatic this sort of counter to the Jarvan. Now the last pick in this phase for Fnatic is actually going to be the Gragas, which we've discussed in the previous game. Obviously has a massive disruption tool in his kit, as well as a very nice setup with his body slam into his Q, meaning he can do tons of damage, and it's why I'm surprised we haven't seen this draft come out from Fnatic at all this series, as it's been realistically, this is looking like their best draft so far. In response though, we do see the Ornn coming through for G2 once again. This time it's not going to be the Zac, and Ornn duty is returning back for Wunder, as he's not going to get one of his classic support pick top laners. As for our second ban phase, G2 do not want to be seeing that much disruption to their team fight, as Set is their first ban here. Obviously, I've discussed how good he is with the disruption from the showstopper, allowing you to take back an enemy to his team, as well as suplexing down, dealing a lot of damage to nearby enemies, and you have a lot of close quarters combat. As for a response from Fnatic, well, it's actually going to be the Zilean, which is kind of a weird ban from Fnatic. Zilean hasn't been shown by Mickey. All we've seen so far in the series is a Lulu. And yes, these sorts of support picks could come out from Mickey, but it's highly unlikely to say the least, so I don't really know where they're stretching to get that Zilean ban. The response though from Fnatic is to remove... the response from G2 is to remove the Rakan. Very sensible ban here, as this is sort of Hylissang's main engaged champion, and G2 don't want him playing engaged champions, so they remove it from the board, meaning there's less chance of an engage coming in from Hylissang. Now, the last ban though from Fnatic is actually a very nice one, as the Jarvan ban comes through. Obviously, he's going to be looking for cataclysms. I don't know why you would technically ban him, because in theory you could lock in Sylas top lane and steal another cataclysm, meaning MF's ult will do a lot of work. Yes, Jankos has popped off on both games on the champion and done considerably well, but you still have an MF who benefits from these sorts of fights, as well as a Gragas. So banning it is sort of a situation. Now it's time for our last pick phase, and where we start off with G2 picking up a champion that works very well in the Trundle. Obviously, it's a great champion to combine alongside the Ornn, as you've got many pillars to work with, as you can slam your forehead into it and knock up as many enemies as possible. Plus, it's a great champion for clearing jungle quickly. You obviously have that little chomp of yours that can speed up your clear, as well as the frost grounding. You can make it very quickly through your jungle, clear it as quick as possible, and actually early gank with this champion very efficiently. Now the response from Fnatic is one that I'm very sad about. Hylissang's not going to be on an engaged champion at all this series. He's put on Braum duty. Obviously that glacial combination has been locked in this last round, as we've seen two glacial champions locked in. Braum, a great champion that can obviously soak up the ults from the Corgi, as well as the Call of the Forge God from Ornn. You position that shield very well, and you can stop it from knocking up your team. I guess it's an alright pick for them, however it's not something that I realistically would expect to be locked in for Hylissang. That being said, the last champion for Fnatic is going to be the Zac, and we're getting to see the other side of the matchup that we just saw in Game 2 between Wunder and Bwipo in that top side. Zac obviously has got that good team fighting ultimate, as well as a good engage tool with that catapult, but with the sort of Fnatic lineup, do you realistically want to be engaging? You want to be technically looking to disengage with him, as Gragas has good disengage, MF has a good disengage tool, and so does Azir. So you're realistically wanting to pin and catch team members on G2 roaming around the jungle and trying to pick them off that way. That being said, G2 lock in the Janna. Mickey's getting another mage in the bot lane. Now Janna obviously has been run by Wunder this season, and it was done considerably well. We've discussed it in an actual Anarchy analysis, and it was actually, I do believe, against Fnatic, I do believe. But this champion is phenomenal. You've got a great lane harassing tool in the Hurricane. You get bonus movement speed, so you're able to roam from lane to lane with ease, get up to mid lane, create ganks, get up to Herald, kill that off with your team. You can start plays before the opposition get there, and it's very, very easy. Plus, you have a great tool for keeping your team alive with your ultimate. That provides AoE healing for your team. It's very, very useful. It means that Fnatic do have to obviously focus out the Janna in a team fight if they want to obviously kill off any G2 members without them gaining considerable amount of health. Plus, when you have a Trundle in your team as well, and an Aphelios who can heal up with ease, it's very, very nice to have a Janna that can just make this healing phenomenally big and very, very hard to deal with. Anyway, that's the draft over and done with. Let's jump into our possible last game of the series. So this game, First Blood, comes a bit weird-like, as it's a solo kill in the top lane for Wunder, who's on an Ornn, into a disadvantageous matchup. And this isn't the only time that he picks up a kill against Bwipo in the top lane solo, as Bwipo immediately obviously will teleport back now after losing a fight so well the Ornn with a bit more of a goal lead this time. And essentially what we believe to happen here is essentially Wunder just lands on top of all of the bloblets from Zac and immediately is just going to keep trading onto him. And he keeps going and he keeps going, and yeah, he does a lot of work, and Bwipo's trying to play very greedy like. He's obviously trying to harass, get the lane pushing into an Ornn, but Bwipo, Wunder's having none of it, and it's just trading very aggressively against the Zac, just popping every bloblet that he can, and essentially what happens is Wunder lands a nice Bellows Breath, and essentially chunks out the Zac. Zac tries to flash from the knockup from the Ornn, but gets hit by it and is now running away to die. With no passive available, it's essentially a dead Zac, which is kind of bad for Fnatic, as the pressure is obviously getting to Bwipo in that top lane, as he's trying to overcommit to minions to get himself to a relevant point in the game because he's so far behind, and it's very disadvantageous for him. However, from there we do see Fnatic claw back quite a big, well, selves back into the game, as at this point, 10 minutes in, we see G2 overcommitting the bot lane for the first turret. Obviously they do manage to get it, but what ends up happening is the Braum shield blocks the Ornn ultimate, but luckily on the rebound, and essentially the re-engage 5 members strong from Fnatic managed to pick off the Aphelios and the Ornn with the Azir ultimate, with the cask, all locking down these two targets in the bot side of the map, giving over 2 kills to Fnatic for first turret gold. And the gold stayed fairly even from this point, as it only was until we get to the 21-minute area, G2 pick up a couple of kills, they then transfer it into a Drake, and 27 minutes in is where the big action kicks off. At this point, Fnatic are on sole point, while G2 only have 1 turret to the name, and there's trading and fighting in the mid lane. Braum uses his ultimate very early, and then bullet time is only used onto the 1-member core out, And essentially here, it's kind of a disoriented teamfight effort here by Fnatic, as one of them dies immediately in the form of the Gragas, who then granted MF trades off for the Ornn, but over-aggression from Azir costs them here, as a 1-for-1 trade where they were ahead gets punished because Azir goes forward with his soldiers, gets nothing from G2, and then is punished for that overstep. He has to burn his flash and still dies. And that 2-for-1 trade is huge for G2 here, as it leads to them going to the Baron pit, starting it up again, and this time with an Aphelios. They're able just to kill it off, and then a phenomenal Hurricane from the Janna stops Zac catapulting himself into the fight. Baron going straight over to G2, and the re-engage begins again. Once again, the Braum gets killed off here with ease, and the Ornn is already in the fight. Aphelios is there, and the MF gets punished for a positioning yet again. And G2 have Baron. They pick up 5 kills in a matter of a minute or so. And as a whole, G2 are on fire, as they're taking this mid lane turret. And this is basically the game-winning siege for G2. They just need to play this smart as they teleport in. They get the mid inhibitor and turret there, and they're sieging for the turret. They're sieging on the base. They get the bot. They are on the Nexus turrets, and Azir picks off one here. Granted, he dies to the Aphelios, and Zac's in the backline already for Fnatic, but he's immediately popped by the Aphelios, picking up a double kill in this fight. Ornn coming out, and the bullet time over the top of it kind of has to disengage G2, and another 2-for-1 trade gives G2 more of an advantage. And the good thing for them is they can rotate back to base with the Baron buff TPs, or so Fnatic think, as the bait is laid. Once again, Azir is punished. Sorry, Braum's punished for his positioning, not being able to shield anything, getting caught out, and another kill going over to G2. Yeah, you see what's happening here, and because Drake is up in literally 15 seconds, they're just resetting to pick up the Drake. Fnatic haven't even positioned for it. They know that they just need 1. G2 need 3 in order to obviously get Soul. So I do believe Fnatic are giving up this dragon in order to actually focus on the game. So it's time for G2 to put this series to bed, killing the top lane tier 2 turret and having pressure in mid lane from the Ornn. G2 are full on siege mode, using the Corki rockets, using the Ornn's pressure in mid to actually force Fnatic back to their base, and immediately the inhibitor is falling, so is the inhibitor, and this is the point where Fnatic have to go in. Once again, a phenomenal Hurricane from the Janna stops the Zac engage, and he's immediately then punished and put into bloblets. Gragas cast will come out here, obviously, to try and disengage. Ornn is kind of poorly used. It only knocks up 1, but the 1 is the Braum, who doesn't really use the ult. We do see G2 picking up a 3rd kill and a 4th kill, and this is the part of the game that's very, very excruciating if you're Fnatic. Missing engagement here from their team, just bad usage of abilities, and overall mistakes that aren't realistically expected to be coming from Fnatic are being shown, and G2 are able to just end the game there and win the actual LEC title for the 3rd time in a row. So, my actual series breakdown here, where I'm just going to cover everything in a broad aspect, and this is going to be a very, very in-depth broad aspect on the entirety of everything. So, let's get started. Why do I feel G2 won this series? Well, it comes down to the draft. Firstly, there were some big mistakes in drafting from Fnatic. Obviously, game 1, they had no real tank frontliner that can sustain and actually engage heavily. yes, you do have a Silas who's great for engage. You can steal the ultimate from Jarvan and do. But Maokai was available. You have tanks that do about the same thing as a Silas that can basically sustain through an Ornn and do a lot of work. And I don't think we saw at all one ban towards Aatrox in the entirety of the series. He would have been a good pick for Fnatic in any of the games into an Ornn. And it amazes me that it wasn't picked. Instead, we saw a Zac in one game. We saw the Ornn in one game actually going over to Bwipo. And the first game also we saw I forget what it was. It was Silas, of course. How could I forget the Silas game? But one thing that was fairly obvious in that last game was the nerves getting to these top players on Fnatic. When you're dying solo in top lane twice to an Ornn who shouldn't really be doing that to you when you're playing Zac, your known counterpick to an Ornn is absolutely destroying you. You know there's a mistake and it's just not your day. Bwipo is a phenomenal player. He's probably the most strategic and best top laner, whereas Wunder is this more zany, he'll pick whatever top laner who can make it work. And their styles are very similar, don't get me wrong. They're both phenomenal players. But today it wasn't Bwipo's day in that top lane. He was panicked. It looked like he underperformed considerably, and it realistically wasn't good for him. And it realistically, when you see your first blood in the first game of the series, a failed turret dive, you kind of realise that you're not going to get that much support from your jungle, as he's going to be forced into having to play more defensive. He's forced into having to be around the map trying to set up plays for the other lanes, because it's more likely going to be them carrying the game than a Silas at this point. And yeah, you can't blame him for having an off day. Everyone has it. And jungle, fairly even matchup realistically. There wasn't much I could say about jungle. Jankos played phenomenally. He played well in terms of his positioning. He got to things. He was there. He was there at the Barons, and securing quick Barons in the first two games was huge for G2, as it allowed them to obviously make these great big plays that won them the game and the series. And yeah, it overall was done very well. As for mid lane for Fnatic, you can't really comment on it. It was played well. Nemesis showed why he was picked up by Fnatic last year, and showed his strength. He's a great mid laner, and he played well into Perks, who just on the day was on form, and he didn't really have to do much. Perks, realistically. He had two standout Azir games, don't get me wrong, but the big difference that you didn't expect was in bot lane. You don't expect Cabs, who's had a quite rocky season as an ADC, to be pulling out a Cogmore in the first two games. Yes, more likely in the second game, because it was up, you didn't ban it, you instead choose to ban an Ezreal and an MF, a comfort pick of his. But you still give over the Cog who he absolutely stormed on in game one, and vital in most of the plays that G2 played today. That Cogmore got them game one. In terms of the team fight, 20 or so minutes in, he was just untouched, able to just rapid fire in, similarly to the Azir, don't get me wrong, but he played phenomenally today, Caps, in that series, and he outshone Reckless, who's considered the best ADC in EU right now. But it was phenomenally played by Caps. Now we get to support, and I'm very interested by support in this series, as both support players were playing things that they realistically aren't known for. Like, Mickey is not a mage player. He's more the support, like TK, Braum, Rakan, champs that can play safe for his lane, because he's obviously laning with Cabs, who realistically isn't a strong ADC, and you need to protect him. Whereas this game he was playing mages. He played mages phenomenally, and in that last game on the Janna, his hurricanes were perfect. It shut down any engage that Fnatic were looking for, as any catapults forward from the Zac were just punished with a hurricane. Once the Zac launched, he just pressed Q. Mickey did, and the hurricane came out straight where Zac's gonna land, and that set up kills in 2 fights. It killed him off and won G2 a fight in the game. And on the other side of the matchup, Hylissang, he was playing the supports that Mickey's gonna play. He was playing the protected ones. He played the Braum. He played the Tom Kench. Not things he's realistically known for. In the series against Mad, he played Zillion and Trundle. Champs that are very, very good for him, as they have engage tools. You see, the point I'm going to make here is Hylissang wasn't playing engage. He was playing protect. When you're known for being very, very good at these sorts of engage tool champions, and you're instead not playing to your strength, that puts your team at a weaker deficit to what G2 were playing. And Hylissang in game 1, he was realistically playing engage. He was flashing over walls as Tom Kench to try and lock up and get a kill for Fnatic, when he realistically should be staying back with Reckless and Nemesis, protecting them. But instead, he's flashing over walls and getting punished for it. And it's uncharacteristic to be playing Tom Kench like that. Don't get me wrong, Hylissang does have these sorts of games where he trolls and throws. And this series felt like one of them. He was being caught out of position. He wasn't really doing much. And he kind of was punished for his positioning on Braum as well. He didn't use his shielding to the best of his ability sometimes in fights. I do believe only one fight he got the shield correct, and they won the fight off of that play because he put the shield behind him and stopped the Ram from Ornn, Call of the Forge God, going through the team setting the brittle stack on him, and he stopped him from being able to headbutt it towards them. Whereas the fight that we've seen, he puts it in front of him so that when Ornn headbutts him, he gets knocked up in the air. And as the guy that's meant to be positioning correctly to protect the team, you don't want to be knocked up in the air, because you're not able to protect your team then. You're stuck. You're screwed, and that's essentially the fight over and done with, because you cannot protect your team. And it was a big issue in this series overall, honestly. And if Bwipo and honestly Hylissang kind of had a better day, I feel, this series could have been a lot more competitive. It could have been a 3-2 to one of these teams, because I felt that this series should have been that close. Instead, we got a blowout from G2 because nerves or issues happened in the Fnatic side that caused them to lose. But you cannot just blame it on Fnatic playing bad. You have to commend G2 for playing phenomenally this series. Caps shored up his ADC role. He showed why he went down to the bot lane instead of Perks. He showed up this series, which was huge for him. And Wunder played phenomenally this series. And in my mind, he should have been MVP for this series as a whole. He was playing standout in my mind, and he probably won't get as much recognition as Caps and Perks will, and even Yankos for how he played, because it was very, very good to me. As a former top laner turned support, I see the sort of play he was doing here was great. But that's going to be it for this Anarchy analysis breakdown, the last one for Spring Split, as the LCS one's already gone up on my channel. This one's going up after it again, as I said at the beginning, and it's been interesting, this, honestly. I've enjoyed making these. It's given me a lot of hope going forward into what future I can go into. And yeah, that's going to be it. I guess we'll round this out for the Spring Split. If you enjoyed it, leave a like down below. Subscribe if you're new around here if you want to. And I will see you guys later for who knows what. Peace out.